Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Lansing Charter Commission for March 4th, 2005. Welcome again. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Commissioner Adam Simon.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Bauer. Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Dowd.
Here.
Commissioner Jeffries.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Cowee. Commissioner Washington. You have 8 members present, a quorum.
Excellent. A motion would be in order to adopt the agenda. Commissioner Cowee moves and supported by Bauer. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the agenda is adopted. Motion be in order for approval of the February 18th, 2025 minutes. Been moved by Ben Dowd and supported by Commissioner Cowee. Any changes or additions on the minutes? Any deletions, changes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the minutes are approved. Time for public comment.
Okay, we have several speakers tonight. First, we have Dick Peffley, followed by Curtis Hertel, and speakers have up to 3 minutes to address the commission.
Good evening. For the record, Dick Peffley, General Manager, Lansing Board, Water and Light. We've been following these procedures since they began, and we understand the value of public input. And we also have seen a handful of folks that have had concerns with the BWL, and even though we believe most of those are policy issues, not charter issues, we have made an attempt to reach out to some of them to try to resolve those, as we do in any committee that we would hear such. That being said, we have a group here tonight, and I know we're not on agenda, but that group was in combination coming with another group on the 18th, and I didn't know if they would all fit in here, or I didn't want to make a long night for you. They're not all going to speak, but they represent political leaders, union leaders, BWL employees. They also are residents, and there are business leaders in this group too. So again, I know that you weren't discussing BWL tonight, but and they're not all going to speak. But I wanted to show that we have been getting a lot of call for support. You know, what can we do to help the BWL? And I said, you can write emails. You can come out and just show support by being in the audience, or you can speak if you choose. So. In closing, I believe the way the charter is written regarding BWL, that it's very well written. It gives the mayor and the city council authority over the BWL commissioners to hold them accountable. And I would request that it stays intact as is, except for the few edits that were submitted previously. And I forgot to mention there's some BWL commissioners in the gallery as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Curtis Hertel, followed by Angela Whitwer.
Hello, Commission. Curtis Hertel, former state senator for this district and also a ratepayer for the Board of Water and Light. Wanted to come and say how important it is that we keep a strong public utility here. Serving in the Senate, we saw a lot of people come in front of us. I can tell you that many people would be proud to have a utility like Board of Water and Light publicly run in their area. I think it's important in these tough political times that we want to keep certainly proper oversight, but also keep away from some of the political whims that happen at this moment. We see those challenges throughout our state. And so for me, the most important thing is that we keep the respect and a proper structure. We protect the employees, we protect the ratepayers, we protect the service at BWL. And so as you're looking through to make changes in the charter, I would suggest that you keep this one aspect as it is. It has served our community well, and it's certainly we have a lot of changes coming down from the state, but the Board of Water and Light has always been in front of those changes. And I think it's important that we remember moving forward that a good publicly run utility has become rare in this state, and we are lucky to have them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Angela Whitwer, followed by Tim Damon.
Hi, everyone. Angela Whitwer. I live in Delta Township, and I'm a state representative. The Lansing Board of Water and Light is a key fixture in our region. Their safe, reliable, and affordable utilities drive economic growth and sustain our local economy. Board of Water and Light's governance structure has worked seamlessly for the last 50-plus years. Having an independent Board of Commissioners separates politics from governance, allowing the mayor to appoint and council to approve the Board of Commissioners gives plenty of opportunity for input on potential candidates. The Board of Water and Light is held accountable through the Board of Commissioners by the mayor, by the council, by the ratepayers, and by all of us in the state. We recently passed a number of new energy-related bills that require compliance and transparency from the Board of Water and Light to meet new clean energy goals. We should be proud to have our local utility, and we should continue to allow them to operate as independent body in their current governance structure. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. Next, we have Tim Damon, followed by Randy Dykheis.
Well, good evening. Tim Damon, President and CEO of the Lansing Regional Chamber of Commerce. And first of all, I want to start off by thanking all of you for your hard work and leadership throughout this process. Thinking about the BWL and the independence, you've heard it from the first two speakers here, and we certainly would strongly support the BWL remaining an independent entity and maintaining its current governance structure and really avoiding some of those political cycles that we see. When we think about economic development, I think by all accounts, energy is only going to continue to become more critical as companies are looking and businesses are looking to grow, invest, and whether it be in our city, in our region. And, while the BWL, a city asset, when you think about the service they provide to our region as well from an economic development standpoint and attracting business, retaining business as well, critically important. When we think about the governance structure, we strongly believe that the mayor should continue to maintain the appointment authority with the checks and balances coming from city council, provides the transparency and oversight in both instances with that. And again, the structure that's in place now maintains that accountability while preventing, again, those unnecessary political interferences. And I think at the end is avoiding any of those unintended consequences. So any governance changes that should be made to the BWL structure, decision-making really needs to be thought about in a strategic, really business-friendly and focused more on that long-term stability. So again, thank you for allowing me some time to be here this evening. And again, thank you for all of your leadership as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Randy Dykheis and then Alicia Franco.
Hi, I'm Randy Dykheis, 418 North Sycamore, proud fourth warder. I know you're taking up BWL in detail at your next meeting, so I'll wait until then to make some comments specifically about BWL, but there are two changes that I think are vital to making all boards and commissions more responsive to Lansing residents. First, the appointment process needs to be much more transparent. As it is now, we don't know who has applied, when they've applied, what credentials they have, and so on, until they show up in front of City Council. And that process needs to be a shared responsibility between the executive and legislative branches. A good starting point for discussion might be for the mayor and clerk, for example, plus two sitting city council members to appoint members of every board and commission, with confirmation still required by the full council. It could be that one of the city council representatives is the ward representative for the vacancy. If it's not a ward vacancy, it could be filled by another ward representative or one of the at-large representatives. However it's done, an arrangement like this would make the process much fairer, much transparent, and less prone to inside dealing. Second, there needs to be a defined number of consecutive terms for any one person to serve on any given board or commission. A reasonable number would be 2 consecutive terms with a year to elapse before the individual could apply for the same board or commission. The model city charter from the American Public Power Association, which Mr. Peffley cited in his appearance here in November, says this: no commissioner shall serve for more than 2 consecutive terms, period. In addition to the American Public Power Association, many associations of nonprofit organizations, such as BoardSource, make this same recommendation. It is indeed a best practice for public and nonprofit organizations. Now, let me hasten to add that appointments to boards and commissions are not the same as being in an elective office. Term limits for elected offices is a terrible idea. However, when individuals are chosen for a seat by a small group of people, it's in the best interest of the community and the board or commission, honestly, that more people have a chance to serve and not just the same old faces over and over and over again. Together, these recommendations will make service on a board and commission more transparent and more democratic. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Alicia Franco, followed by Mike McDaniel.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Alicia Franco. I serve as the Internal Audit Director at the Lansing Board of Water and Light. I'm here tonight to give you a brief overview of the internal audit function, how we ensure our independence, develop our work plan, and then provide a high-level overview of our governance document, the Internal Audit Charter. Independence is established by directly reporting to the Board of Commissioners, specifically the Finance Committee. I do not report to management in any capacity. This separation ensures that the internal audit function remains independent and objective in its assessments and findings. Internal audit has the authority, as outlined in the Internal Audit Charter, to conduct audits without interference from management. This includes This includes the ability to review processes, procedures, and systems across the organization, including management itself. The department also has unrestricted access to all necessary information to perform audits, ensuring that audits are thorough and free from management influence. I want to share an example by referencing an audit completed in fiscal year 2024 on BWL's rules and regulations, specifically the BWL security deposit process. Internal audit recommended that management should revise the customer security deposit release guidelines. This change consisted of customers getting credit for their security deposit to their account only if they had no shutoffs within a 12-month rolling period. Management agreed to implement this recommendation, and with a collaborative effort, $3.2 million was returned to our customers. The development of the internal audit work plan is completed on a fiscal year basis. The first step is conducting a risk assessment, which helps identify and prioritize organizational key risk. We also review the audit universe, a complete range of activities, processes, and functions subject to internal review. It also serves as a foundation for developing an internal audit work plan, allowing auditors to prioritize areas for review. The Board of Commissioners may also request an area of concern to be placed on the audit work plan. Lastly, the Internal Audit Charter serves as our governing document. It defines our mission, our purpose, our commitment to upholding the global internal audit standards. It outlines the mandate and authority, independence, and establishes oversight by the Board of Commissioners. Additionally, the Charter details the director's roles and responsibilities, including adherence to ethics and professionalism. The Internal Audit Charter ensures that audit activities are conducted with clarity, transparency, and accountability. Overall, the internal audit function helps safeguard the organization's assets, ensuring compliance and supports continuous improvements, contributed to BWL's long-term success and sustainability. In closing, I encourage you to contact me with any questions or concerns about BWL's internal audit department and functions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Mike McDaniel, followed by Linda Keefe.
Good evening. Thank you, sir, members of the board. My name is Mike McDaniel, raised pair from East Lansing. I was also the chair of the community review team appointed by then Mayor Verge Bonero back in late 2013, 2014 to evaluate the BWL's response to the December 21st ice storm that we had that year. And that review went on for some time in the sense that there was a number of recommendations. We made some 80 recommendations in that report, so they couldn't all be done immediately. I will say that all of them have been done by the Board of Water and Light. It has been responsive to the community in that sense. Chairman David Price, Board Chairman David Price reminded me just this evening before the start of this meeting that a few months afterwards, we were on WKAR sort of having a debate over my report, and I expressed some skepticism as to whether the Board of Water and Light could change its culture internally. And he reminded me of that, and I had to agree with him that it did in fact happen. So looking at the Board of Water and Light, I have one main point to make for you. The Board of Water and Light in Lansing is, I think, the 32nd largest public utility in the United States, and there's some 2,000 of them. In the state of Michigan, it is the oldest and it's the largest, with approximately 95 to 96,000 ratepayers. The one thing that was in the report that took a long time was the recommendation that the Board of Water and Light develop resiliency, develop the ability, unlike almost every other public utility, and certainly unlike every other public utility in the state of Michigan, to generate all the energy that it needed, and if possible, to be able to sell energy outside of our region when there was a surplus. So this required a number of things to do so. But they had strategic vision for the diversification of the sources of power, starting back then, 2013 with the cogeneration plant, and the need to generate sufficient electrical power to assure that they can always meet customer demand. So besides the cogeneration plant in 2013, I know you are aware of their strategic plan going forward to add some 650 milliwatts of new energy through different energy sources, whether it be solar, wind, battery storage, and a new reciprocating internal combustion engine plant to go online. These are great innovations that we do not see from other public utilities. It's because of their independence, working with the board, that they are able to do so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Linda Keefe, followed by Joy Gleason.
Thank you. Yes, Linda Keefe. I am a former county commissioner. I represented part of the east side of Lansing. The reason I'm here is because there are a lot of Lansing residents that are really struggling to pay their Board of Water and Light bills every month. There's been shut-offs, and this has been the coldest winter I've ever experienced in my 30 years here. There's a number of issues. It's the smart meters. We need a percentage of income payment plan, which 20 other states and District of Columbia have, in which people can pay a maximum of 6% of their income. Lansing has a lot of renters, 53.3% are owner-occupied units. Typically, renters have the highest energy burden. There's not a lot of incentive for landlords, to make some changes like that. There was a person that came to the city council meeting, Tasha Canty, spent $9,600 last year to Board of Water and Light. I can't even imagine. I would have to move home with my mom. I'm serious. And I'm just thankful that I don't have that. With the smart meters, they are tested by an industry-funded group. The electronics are taken out of the meters. It's the American National Standards Institute. It's not a federally charged group that even does the test. And it gets a little technical for me, not an electrician, and I'll go into that probably in another meeting. But there are a number also of municipalities and counties that have opted out of the smart meters. Counties, Allegan, Macomb, Oakland, cities, villages, townships, Allen Park, Almont, Brighton Township, Carroll, Dearborn Heights, Fairgrove, Farmington Hills, Grosse Pointe Shores, and the list goes on. There's another 15 of them. It could, and it is a good service, but we need to think of people that are struggling. Not everybody's got an $80,000 a year job, let's face it. And I just don't like to see people suffer needlessly when there are ways that could be worked out to help people. It's inhumane to me to have someone's power turned off in these degrees that we've been having. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Joy Gleason, and then Loretta Stanaway.
Good evening, Joy Gleason, and I would like to give my opinion about how things should change in how the Board of Water and Light is chosen and the accountability therein and the transparency thereof. It seems to me that one of the biggest problems is the transparency in knowing who is applying for both the Board of Water and Light and most of the boards that we have in the city. The appointment process that goes through the mayor gives the mayor the power, the discretion to only put forth to the council whomever the mayor decides is worthy, whomever the mayor decides is a person who, for whatever reason or perhaps no reason, to go forth into positions that adjudicate important things in the lives of everyone in Lansing, and in the case of Board of Water and Light, people in the greater Lansing area. I just trembled when I heard Ms. Whitmer's statement, Whitwer, that the Board of Water and Light has been operating so genuinely for 50 years. I think that they did that for a very long time, but the year 2013 is just burned in my memory as the beginning of the insincerity, as the beginning of the time that we looked up and found out that there were thieves in the midst, robbing us blind. And as was previously mentioned, it's only been a couple of years, because the state of Michigan got involved, that the ratepayers of BWL were returned money that was rightfully theirs. How many people's lives were affected negatively because of the insincerity and graft going on in that agency? That in itself is a sign that they need to change, that we need to look over them. If you think that something is broken in the Board of Water and Light, we should fix it. And if you think that nothing is broken, then we should break it. There needs to be a change, and I am here advocating on behalf of ordinary people, because I am one of the most ordinary people, that we need something done. It is very clear that not all of the people that have been elected to represent us are going to represent us, but I'm looking to you as the Charter Commission to make the changes that will help us go forward in Lansing for the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Loretta Stanaway.
Okay, I'm going to start with talking about per diems and pay for city council members, and what I would suggest is a good process for that to take. I think that a good option would be to pay the city council members according to this plan. $75 an hour for the typical council and COW meetings, which average 2 hours each. So you're talking $150 for COW, $150 for council, times 26 meetings, $7,800 a year base salary. And thereafter, I think the research has showed that on average, most of the committee members would, between committee appointments or meetings, boards, and commissions, would be hitting about 150 additional meetings per year at $125 per meeting, for $18,750, for a total of $26,550 if they meet all of their meetings and get all of their per diems. That would leave us with the fact that we have one less council member. This is approximately what the council members are making now, and this would give us enough money to fund a legislative aid with the money that would have gone to an 8th council member. So that's my advice and recommendation there. As far as the Board of Water and Light goes, I have so much to say about that, it would take 3 minutes. So I'll limit it to the fact that I do believe there should be a limit on how long somebody can serve on the board. I think that it's a very rare person, for instance, Carol Wood is an example, who can legitimately carry out for the citizens a good job for as long as 20 years. I think in the most cases, nobody belongs on a board or a commission or a committee for 20 years at a time. And lastly, I think there needs to be a lot more consideration of whether or not that 88 cents a month that we are now paying as a quote fee to chip into the funds for the state to issue to people that are having hard times paying their bills. I'm all for having people get help paying their bills, but I don't think it's a legitimate charge to have us all chip in 88 cents without any option to not do so. I think if you look back at the rain tax and the wording, you will find that that's an illegitimate fee. Thank you.
Thank you, and that was our last speaker signed in.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're now down to officer reports. Under the chair's report, I just want to update everybody in terms of what our meetings are going to be looking like the next 3 meetings that we have. Our next meeting will be March 18th. That is the meeting that we'll be discussing the Board of Water and Light. It's in Article 5, Chapter 2. So if you have specific interest in that issue, make sure you attend that meeting. Also, we have scheduled a meeting for March 25th. This will be where we talk about the Office or Department of Sustainability. We'll have a presentation by the Public Service Department at that meeting. And then on April 1st, if the board will recall, when we had the article up talking about council, we had a discussion about the internal auditor. So we're going to have the internal auditor in at that meeting, and we have put out some questions to him to see if it's possible to coordinate the transparency officer kind of function that we've talked about in the internal auditor's department. So there will be a discussion. Hopefully we'll have some materials be presented to us prior to that meeting, and we'll have the discussion then. So that is my report. Madam Vice Chair?
No report.
Mr. Clerk?
Just that there are some written communications in your packet, and also I handed out tonight some results. We did a survey of city clerk role in local government across Michigan. Out of 281 city clerks, 233 responded, so I thought that was a pretty good rate. So just thought it might be helpful information.
Okay, we're to old business. If you recall at our last meeting under Article 2, we had, I think, 2 or 3 issues that were that remain to be worked on. One dealt with 4-102.10. This was a discussion, if I can get to it, or pardon me, I'm sorry, 2.104, the compensation of officers. We'll start with that one. That was the per diem conversation that we had, and if I've got it right, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. The concern at that point was to be able to try to construct a mechanism whereby there would be some sort of guarantee that there would be parity between all of the council members in terms of the number of committees that they would be able to serve on and the per diems that they would be able to get. So everyone is going to come out pretty much on the same level. And so were there any other concerns other than that? I'm trying to get some direction to our attorney so she can put something together. So were there any other issues dealing with that particular item in terms of the per diem? I guess I would ask the attorney, if Kristen, if do we have to spell out in the charter, specifically what that would look like, or can we leave that up to that decision to be made by the EEOC or EOCC, or an ordinance that would be created by council, or should that be done by the charter?
So I think typically what happens is those sort of determinations of committee assignments, when they happen, that sort of thing, are often done by rule of the board, which for Lansing, the rules end up being an ordinance, so that typically is how it's done. It's possible to put that in the charter. One of the assignments I have is to go through and see if any charter in Michigan has something like that. That's not something I've done yet. I do want to caution, though, with things like that, where it is typically a rule, it is something you may want to consider whether it makes sense to leave it broad in the charter to allow for change by the board that is governed by the rules. So, but that is more information that will be forthcoming, hopefully at the next meeting.
All right, so in terms of the language that you're working on, in terms of trying to get to that parity, is that some language that we would put in the charter?
I think it could, and part of the analysis is gathering sort of what other cities have done, and to the extent that you would want some language in the charter, we can present some to you. We've just not completed that body of work yet. But that's something certainly that we intend to present to you with sort of a pro and con for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on that specific issue? Anyone? Nope. Sorry, Commissioner Bauer.
I guess just to clarify, we have not made the decision to do per diems, correct? Okay.
That's correct.
And when we get information, we'll have that discussion.
That's correct.
At a further time. Thank you.
Yes, I think if you look back at the information that was presented to us at our last meeting, there was some language there for us to vote on to do that. We decided not to do that, to get more information, and then we'd make that decision in the future. Councilmember, or Commissioner Washington.
As we're looking for the information and language as a possible per diem, which I am in favor of, I would prefer it be done more broad and that it not be spelled out in the charter, that it be done by ordinance, by council, and then that way there's more wiggle room as we go through the years.
Okay. Other statements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Moving on to Article 4, we had two items that we did not complete. There was some concern. One was 4-102.11. It was currently 10, but we had number changes. And this dealt with the annual report on the status of affirmative action programs in the city. There was language that was presented, and I think we had some discussion, but there was still some concern about what did this actually mean. Have you had an opportunity to further review that, think about it, so we can give our attorney some direction? I thought the language that we actually had some language up for a vote. The vote was not taken because of some of the concerns that were expressed. Having gone back over that, I thought it was pretty inclusive. And I think there was some concern about the annual reports and how complete were they? Did they address the issues that we wanted them to be addressed? I've gone through several of them. I think they're very, very complete. And if there are, Commissioner Dow.
I think one of the things we were hoping to get language on too is like what's the weight to hold that accountable. So we talked about it and we realized there were things that just weren't happening. And how are we, and we heard from public too, like how do we make sure these things do happen? How do we build that in the charter? So I guess I'm curious to see if there is language still yet to come on what that looks like to make this must happen, right? Instead of.
No, you're right. I think we were trying to look for some universal language that we're going to be able to put in to address all of those issues. And I think we'll get something back on that at our next meeting. And then I think the last issue in Article 4 dealt with the Finance Department, 4-302.2, and it talked about coordination with the divisions. We got into this this discussion about divisions, departments. Do we want any more of those? The way I look at this proposed amendment, the language currently reads that the Department of Finance shall be in charge of the divisions of accounting, assessment, budget, management, income tax, and treasury. And the proposed amendment was to strike be in charge of and insert shall coordinate with. And I think if we look at, and I think this was pointed out, if we look at the next section, 4-40, let's see, if we get to it, 401, heads of departments, it talks about that the head of each department of the city shall be responsible to the mayor for the administration of the department. I think what I heard from the administration when they were here is that when it says that the Department of Finance shall be in charge of, it was cutting against the mayor's ability to be able to have that function of directing those departments to do what they're supposed to be doing, and he has that ultimate responsibility. So the way I look at it, and I guess, Kristen, I'd ask you, it seems to me that those two provisions are in conflict. And I think the language that was proposed would actually bring them into compliance with each other. Is that how you look at it? Am I missing something on that?
I apologize, I was looking for my memo with the proposed changes in there. Finance Department, and what other section were you looking at?
Just finance, and then the 404.
401?
Heads of departments. Like, .4, and then you could look at 402 as well.
Yeah.
Because that gives the mayor the authority to appoint the treasurer, assessor, et cetera.
I don't know that they're necessarily in conflict with each other, but I would have to give that a more thorough review.
So then does 4-302.2, when it says the director of finance shall be in charge of, I mean, who do these folks report to? Ultimately, I mean, who's the ultimate backstop here? Mayor.
So, again, I think when you look at, I'm looking at 4-401. Certainly, I think an argument could be made that 4-302, because it does use the in charge of, would subordinate the accounting assessment and the rest to the Department of Finance. So I think it could create, to the extent that the desire is to have those other departments report more directly to the mayor, this could I guess, muddy the waters, as it were. So again, if that's something that you wanted to remove and make sure it's clear that these other departments are reporting directly to the mayor or in a manner that the mayor organizes, then in charge of could be an obstacle to that.
Well, in terms of, I think the language you proposed was coordinate with, as opposed to be in charge of.
It was, and I apologize, I can't find that memo, but I do recall it was something like that. It was, yeah.
I got it here if you want it. Commissioner Washington.
I will just say again, and I know I said it last time, that I think these divisions should be under the finance department. I don't think they should all be individual departments. They're all finance any more than I think, I report to a bureau that has divisions, that have sections, but at the end of the day, we report to the director of the entire department, but that doesn't mean the governor can't come in and talk to any one of us. So I think, frankly, I think we're making much ado about nothing.
Anybody else? So, I'm sorry, go ahead. Mr. Clerk.
A quick update. Well, never mind, it's not public, so, never mind.
Oh, we want to hear now.
I'm like, wait a minute, I think I'm speaking out of turn. So, never mind.
All right, all right. So can you review that again, and we'll talk about it? Okay. All right, so that takes us then, in terms of Article 4, trying to finish it up. I think we left off at the Fire Department 4-303. Everybody have that in front of them? Okay, so going through this, 403.1, does anybody have any concerns, changes, corrections to that language? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Passes. Point 2, the fire chief shall be appointed by the mayor from candidates recommended by the Board of Fire Commissioners. Anybody have any questions or concerns about that? I guess my question is, and I don't know, maybe Chris, if you know the answer to this, how does the Board of Fire Commissioners get a list of candidates? Is there an RFP process, or how does that work?
I think it's posted through the HR department, and they are the ones that review the applicants. And I think the Human Resource Department generally would do a first pass and make recommendations.
Okay, so they're subject to that process, okay. There is a difference, and I don't know if this matters to anybody, but if you look at 4-303.2 in terms of how the fire chief is appointed, and then you go to 4-307 to the police department, the appointment is a bit different. The police chief shall be appointed by the mayor in consultation with the Board of Police Commissioners and subject to confirmation by a majority of members of the Board of Police Commissioners serving. Does that make a difference? Do we want to be consistent? Is there a difference here? I don't know why we're treating one differently than the other. Do you know the history behind that, Chris?
I do not know any history behind that.
Okay. Commissioner Washington.
We don't have any idea why they're different, or is
No.
this just what each department came up with? I mean,
Well,
I would
this is-
prefer consistency, but I wondered if there was a reason behind this.
I don't know. Commissioner Kui?
I just said before we change that, maybe we should ask how that Board of Commissioners for the police, because I'm pretty sure the background probably is a little bit different on how they might appoint or follow before someone comes up for recommendation. So let's find that out first.
Yeah, and in fact, Emery, if you could look at the history, she has some access to the history of the commission in the prior charter, so there might be some direction. Pardon me?
Emery, just
Oh.
Emery.
Oh, sorry. So we'll take a look at that. And there was no change to this, right, Chris, during the term of the charter?
No.
Okay.
No, there was no amendment during the past
Okay.
years that this has been in effect.
All right, thank you. So we'll come back to that one? All right. Point 3. Anybody have any concerns or questions on that? And I think what's interesting about that is that point 3 for the fire department is consistent with the police board. Yeah, yeah, so that's interesting. All right, all those in favor of point 3, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 4. Anybody have any questions or concerns about that one? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Oh, I'm sorry.
It still passes.
Okay.
But they did bring up a question, instead of us maybe finding out about the police department, also, we need to find out about the board of fire commissioners. Is it a majority, or does all of them have to agree on that? Because it really doesn't state that.
Oh. In terms of the recommendation?
Correct.
Okay. All right, we'll check on that. Yeah, we may want to address that. Yeah, okay. If you can get us the language, or we can then send it out and have it. Okay, perfect. All right, point 5, we've already amended. Now to the 4-304 off. So this will now become Office of the City Attorney based on our last, okay. Point 1. Questions? Concerns? Changes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, let's have a roll call, since everybody was so responsive.
Is there discussion?
Yeah.
Commissioner Adam Simon.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Sorry.
Take your time.
Deep breath.
Nay.
Commissioner Bauer. Commissioner Boyd.
Yeah,
Please.
Commissioner Boyd.
Have we dealt with the issue of the city council versus the mayor and the city attorney and who the attorney works for? Have we dealt with that issue? Because I don't see that in this recommendation.
It's not, it would not be here. We talked about it at our last meeting. We had some language. It would be further down. It would be around point 6 that would come into play. I think that's where we were looking at it.
Because I don't think we've come to a resolution on that, have we?
No, we have not.
In that case, I want to vote no on this issue because I would like to have that issue addressed. I think that's an important issue, and I don't think we've addressed it.
Commissioner Dowd.
No.
Commissioner Jeffries.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez. Commissioner Coe.
Yes.
Commissioner Washington.
I didn't have the votes.
4 yeas, 5 nays.
Okay.
It
Does
does not.
fail. All right. Does anybody have any other language they want to put in? I guess we'll come back to that. Oh, Commissioner Dowd.
I don't have suggested language here. I do think this has been something we've been on the table to talk about for a while. I don't think that we've kind of settled it. So I'm not ready to commit to what the language that's out there. I think Commissioner Boyd brings a good point. If we kind of figure out what the reporting structure is for the attorney department, that helps. But there's also been conversation about whether we have an elected attorney, a appointed attorney. And we've not, I don't know that we've actually had that discussion amongst this group really in depth. So that being said, I think I'd be open to having more discussion about it first.
Commissioner Washington.
I'm in favor of an elected city attorney, and I would like to see what the possibilities of that are, because that way the city attorney, which is critically important, would answer to the people and not to the mayor or the city council. But as it's set up right now, it is broken and it is not working.
Commissioner Coe.
I guess I do believe that in our last meeting, when we went over that information, it was brought up that she did look up and there was no city attorneys that were elected. And when all the ones that she had pointed out, our attorney, that they were appointed. I guess my question is how well or transverse, and you might know because you sat on city council, is that confirmation by city council? Because they do have the option of turning that person or that appointee down. So I guess if the process. Sounds like the process might be broken. Instead of us going as far as electing one, we might need to change the process as far as how they scan or what you want to call it?
Process 4.0.
Process, yeah, the process for electing one.
Commissioner Boyd.
I voted no on this simply because I don't have enough information. Unlike Commissioner Washington, I do not support electing our city attorney. That's not why I voted no. I simply voted no because I don't think I have enough information. And it seems to me that last time when we talked about this, there was the incident at one point in history, and correct me if I'm wrong, where the city council hired outside counsel, and then the outside counsel wasn't paid because there was no provision in the city budget for them to be paid. And we ask that that be repaired in the draft language, and I don't see it here, but maybe it's here, but maybe I just didn't see it. I don't know.
We don't have any draft language at this point.
Because I do think that the city council, under certain circumstances, needs to have their own counsel, and they need to be able to have it paid for. And I don't think there is a provision in this right now for that. Thank you.
Commissioner Washington.
Just really quickly, I realize I will probably vote against anything that's not an elected city attorney, only because that's what the majority of the people I talk to would like. But having said that, what our attorney told us is although there are no examples of it, there is nothing stopping us from doing it. So it's not like we can't do it, we can do it. And the problem with the city attorney, yeah, the council gets to talk to the candidate for about 10 minutes. Well, after you're working with that person for 4, 5, 10 years, that 10 minutes means nothing. And the way it is written right now, which is why I said it's broken, is because the mayor has the authority to fire the city attorney. The council does not. So there's always going to be a personal bias, which any of us would have if our livelihood depended on it. That's what is broken. It's not that they can't get an outside attorney or anything like that. If we're going to keep an appointed attorney, perhaps somebody on the council should be in the interviewing process also, or a committee, and they come to it together, and maybe, I don't know, we have to come up with something. It's not working. It hasn't worked in years. And those of you that have been on council, you know it hasn't worked. So I think even if we don't go to elected, which is what I will vote for because that's what I'm hearing, this beyond the city attorney and the wards and at-large positions, this is the third largest thing people voted on this charter review for. So I do think Chair, maybe we just need to have a more robust conversation about this and think outside of the box and come up with some solutions, because it's not working.
Well, I'm hearing several issues here. One is, how do we get a city attorney here? Is it an appointment? Is it going to be elected? Whatever. The second issue is, what kind of representation should council get in terms of their own independent representation if they ever have a need for it? And I think there was a third issue. Pardon me?
Firing?
Termination, yep, of the city attorney. How does that work? And so I think the hiring of the city attorney, whether it's going to be an appointment process or an election process, is going to be kind of separate from the other ones. And I don't think we have to take them all together at the same time. That would be my view of things. But we can certainly discuss them at the same time. But I think they would be handled in different parts of this section as a different subsection of this chapter. Go ahead. Commissioner Bauer?
Assuming that one supports that the city attorney is not elected but is hired and approved, as I look at the first, at least 1 through 4, they're general, they set up the framework, and to me, they define the scope, the authority. I do agree, if we have some issues, other issues, that we could address those, but I'm very comfortable, at least like 1 through 4, and really 5. I think, and I'm not suggesting we do them all together, I'm just saying I support those as a framework that's worked. The city attorney has broad responsibilities. And the other thing, and I'd ask any of us to think about, and some of you who've been involved more recently, so there are times, and I have been through those when there's differing of opinions, but the vast majority of the time, the work of the city attorney's office and all the attorneys on behalf of the attorney for the city, I don't think there are that many issues. And I'd ask Commissioner Washington, because you recently served, did this come up a lot more than the big issues that would be controversial between the mayor and the council? But were there, yes, but like a lot of them? I mean, I guess.
Sure. I'll give you an example. When I was on the HRCS board, the charter gives the HRCS advisory board a whole lot of responsibility. In fact, the city attorney at the time said, this board has a lot of responsibility, and the board was never allowed to conduct those responsibilities because the department head didn't want them to, and so the mayor allowed them to hire all kinds of people to take over what that board was actually supposed to do, and there was a reason that that board was created. And so all the oversight was taken away from the public representatives and given to employees. So when the city attorney and I talked, he said, absolutely, this is the way it should be, yada, yada, yada. Then when he went to the mayor, it changed dramatically. That's one example. Those are the things that happen. It's not huge things you're going to read about in the newspaper. It's not those things. It's the day-to-day operations, and it happens a lot.
Yeah, thank you, because good information, thanks.
Commissioner Dow.
I'm curious in here, so this section specifically does not call out the actual firing of, right? So the mayor appoints and city council approves, but this section does not talk about firing and who has the authority to. And I wonder if creating some language in there that says the city attorney employment may only be terminated by a agreed upon action with city council and mayor or what have you. I wonder if that helps alleviate some of that problem. But this does not talk about, we just keep saying the mayor can fire the attorney at any will. That's not stated here.
Chris, do you know if this is one of those appointments or one of those positions that the city has is the one-year contract? Just an annual contract?
There is an annual contract for this.
And so I'm sure that would address, so, I mean, you have a term of 1 year, and it would have to be renewed. Sir? Can't hear you.
At will.
Oh, yeah, but, okay, so Commissioner Cui and then Commissioner Lopez.
I guess that really brings up a more defined, to me, saying if we were to elect someone, now you have that person for 3 or 4 years. So if they are a bad person, we are not able, besides a recall, to get rid of them if they are an elected official, where if they only have a year contract. And I do believe one of the things that we probably could fix is make it more that city council has, or majority of city council has more bearing on the hiring and on the firing of that person. But I would hate for us to get a bad attorney and now they're locked into a 3 or 4 year term where if that 12 months, we could kick them out of here.
And I really appreciate that, and those are the kind of
Commissioner
discussions I would, I would like to have that discussion, but you know what? We can get a really bad mayor, and we can get really bad council members, and they too are elected. So I'm just saying, you can't just go by that, but I would like to have those conversations and see if maybe we can fix it within the confines of something we can all agree.
Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you, Mr. President. So if we were to have language in the charter that said that the attorney could not be fired basically unless the council approved, would that also open that process for other department heads who have like contracts with the city? So if this contract will allow for them to come before council and say, I'm being fired, for discrimination, let's say. So I think it would open a lot of other things. I'm not saying it's good or bad, I'm just saying it might open it in that way. The other thing, which I'm really not, either way, just pointing out that this would also probably be more costly to the city to have an elected city attorney with their own staff and having to deal with their own budget, et cetera, et cetera. Not that I'm opposed to it, it's just thoughts that come to my head is what would happen in these situations and how much would that add to the budget in a way. But, city attorneys in a totally different situation because of the legal issues that they confront. And, with the advice of the attorney years ago, the various boards, like the Human Relations and the Police Board of Commissioners, I think that from being a board became an advisory board some years ago. So whatever they had before, they could, propose changes and et cetera, changed slightly from a board to an advisory board. So, there are things that happen on a daily basis that people really don't realize. But at the same time, you have to balance this out, and I think that's the issue. How do we balance it so that it could help the people that vote for these individuals?
Yeah. If I could just point out one thing, if you go to Chapter 4, 401.5, talks about how persons appointed by the mayor may be suspended or removed by the mayor and what the role of council is in that process. So that could very well apply to the city attorney's position. Commissioner Washington.
Just to Commissioner Lopez's point, the difference between the city attorney and all other department heads is the city attorney is the only one that is responsible to both the mayor and city council. All of the department heads are administrative staff, and they are all responsible to the mayor alone.
Any other? Commissioner Dowd.
Just continuing to dive through how the language is written here. What's interesting about this is that we've talked about the words may and shall quite a bit in here, and this says the mayor may appoint, or the city attorney may be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by council, not shall. So this does not say that the mayor has to appoint. This is saying the mayor may appoint. So I think it's semantics, right? But we could adjust this language to have some confirmation because it is not requiring that the mayor appoints the attorney.
Good catch. Any other comments? So let's come back at our next meeting and go through some of that. I just, in my 2 cents on the election of a city attorney, my concern as an attorney, looking at another attorney, is that when you elect, if you have an elected city attorney, who's that city attorney responsible to? The electorate. Right now with council and with the mayor, You know, if they've got each other to buffer, you know, they can put up their own guardrails and they have to answer to each other. But who does the city attorney answer to? Nobody. And you're creating a third department, not even a department, but level of government that can basically say to both the council and the mayor, no, I'm going to do it my way. And don't believe that attorneys won't do that, because they do. Exactly. So, I mean, it's just, you know, the checks and balances between a mayor and council, you know, they are what they are and they're very helpful, but there would be no checks and balances with an elected city attorney. So that's just my 2 cents. So let's come back and talk about that at our next meeting. Okay, moving on to 4-305, Parks and Recs Department.
Did we say point 6, or we're not dealing with it?
We're going to come back and deal with that whole section when we come back.
Okay.
Okay. So Parks and Rec, on the first point 1, anyone have any concerns, comments about that? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Number 2. I would ask that, I guess, when we review this, for example, cemetery services and forestry are now under the Public Service Department. Maybe if we can make sure we update.
No. Cemetery's under.
That's not what's on the, it's not what is in the computer and the website, on the city's website.
Cemeteries are under parks.
Yeah,
I don't know about.
I mean, if you, well,
Go to the website.
yeah, if you could.
I think forestry would be.
Or maybe I've got it right here.
Mr. Chair.
Uh,
I think
Commissioner Lopez.
the only one here, facilities, may be under O&M and not under parks.
Okay.
But the other ones, as I understand, are part of Parks and Rec. Even though they have their own facilities as well. So
Okay.
maybe that needs to be clarified.
Please, we'll get to it. All right. Well, if we can review to make sure what we have is consistent. Yes. Commissioner Washington.
This planning department, it is actually, right now, it's called what, Economic and Development Planning?
Yes.
One thing, hey, we're probably not at the space to do that. I would really like to see building safety and code compliance pulled out from there, because that is a huge issue, always will be, particularly as we build more and more buildings, and we continuously have problems with that. I would love to see that be its own department. And then planning and economic development, perhaps they could really do some planning and economic development.
Okay. Other discussion on that issue? Well, I guess if we're starting to talk about the creation of another department, I think we start to need to have some sort of idea of what the cost is going to be and how we would go about, if we're going to create a new department or 2 new departments, what does that look like in terms of staffing, cost? And where would we get that information, I guess is what I'm asking. You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we could have the finance department look at it, but, you know, if you're looking at a department head and administrative staff, I think that's an organizational thing that you wouldn't be able to do until you do it. I mean, you could come up with some broad ranges, but I don't think you could necessarily come up with that.
Okay. Well, I think we need to have some sort of estimate. Commissioner Washington.
With all due respect, excuse me, I don't think it's our job to determine what it'll cost or not cost and whether or not it should be done. I think it's something that we should do without that consideration. I'm not Trump. I don't think I need to find all the cuts in the best places to
I would like
take
to know.
money. So I'm just saying if it should be done, it should be done. And it's really not our job to find the financial efficiencies.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, so moving down here, let's see if we can get some sort of agreement on the Planning and Economic Development Department. Point 1, is there any disagreement there? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. I'm sorry? Point 2. Any concern about that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 3. Anyone have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes. Point 4. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Passes. Point 5, would the planning board be the planning commission? Is that what that's referring to? So, I guess we could make the amendment, or Kristen, do you want to bring some language, or should we just go ahead and amend it? So let's do that. In point 5, where it says the director shall be responsible for providing the planning board, we would strike board and insert commission. So it'd read the planning commission with staff and all information necessary for the strike the board, insert commission to carry out its assigned duties under section 5, 601 and 602. Is there a motion to amend?
And
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Discussion. Anything?
No, why aren't we changing that?
If this is the planning, it's the planning commission, it's not the planning.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, does pass. And then, so is point 6, Commissioner Washington, is that what you want to have more discussion about? Okay, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Okay, we're to 4-307, Police Department. I'm sorry, Commissioner Boyd.
again, a point of clarification. Commissioner Washington, what was it you proposed, that there be a separate department based on what? Tell me again. Thank you.
Commissioner Washington.
Because building safety and red tags and dilapidated housing and making sure that we have appropriate housing is under the Economic and Planning Development Board. Right now, there are so many things under that department, so many things. And our building safety and our co-compliance is huge. It's huge in the city. And as we build more and more apartment buildings and other buildings, and as we see our housing stock age and our business buildings age, I think it is very important to the economic development, but not under this department, that it be its own separate department, as it is. It's been under planning, it's been under the fire department, it's been under everywhere. And frankly, I think it is one of the most important things that this city, a city government, should care about and take responsibility for.
If I might ask, is that outlined somewhere in our charter? So right now, we have our Planning and Economic Development Department, and it's up to the mayor or whomever to organize the city government in such a way that those responsibilities fall under that department. Is that what you're telling me?
I am saying that, and I am saying it should be its own department.
And to that point, we've had somebody in the audience who has recommended that we have a sustainability department. So I guess the whole issue of how many departments we have and what they do is perhaps a subject of conversation by this charter commission. I don't know.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, at this point, economic development is also under planning, talking about the many things that are under planning. So actually, that's one department, economic development and planning. So I don't think have we talked about economic development here yet on the charter? No. So the economic development used to be a different office, I believe. Economic development planning? Well, it's been under planning for a long time. Whatever, yes.
Go ahead.
Currently, we have the economic development and planning department. Planning department's not even correct. That's not what it is.
I'm looking at the table of organization that was provided to us, and it says economic development and planning.
Correct.
Okay.
That's what we actually have, but that's not reflected here.
No, right, that's what I'm saying. No, this reflects here, but we haven't talked about the economic development piece. So if we're not going to put it in the planning department, we need to look at other places.
That was my concern earlier while we're doing this. And obviously we're planning for a future and departments can change.
Right.
But so are we going to separate that out, or are we just dealing with the planning department? Because currently it is economic development and planning. But as you know, with different administrations, they can change.
Yeah, I don't think that was in the initial document, economic development.
Right, they weren't combined
Because
initially.
every mayor can change the makeup of those departments, put them wherever he or she wants them to have a better flow of government. So I just bring up the fact that we haven't spoken about
Well,
economic
then
development.
perhaps we should have no departments at all.
I'm sorry?
And I said perhaps we should have no departments at all, and as each mayor comes in, they can determine what they want for departments.
Exactly.
So
That's what I
I think
said.
we should, if we're going to do that, we should do away with all of them except for police and fire.
I understand that. But when
Is
we're
that what
talking
you're
about planning
proposing?
here, I said, well, at this point, where's the economic development piece go? That's the real question. Okay? That's the
Well,
question.
Yeah,
Because
and I'm
that's-
just
that's a
saying
big-
currently
that's a big
it's with economic development and planning. This is not reflective of what we have.
I don't know that, because I don't work there, but
Commissioner
I don't know.
I thought we previously already voted to update the language of the department to, right. So it doesn't say it on here, but we did already vote to update it to economic development and planning, so it will be. It's already been voted on. Yeah, yeah.
So because we did decide on it previously, shouldn't we be looking at this section as the economic development and planning department? Because you're saying the director of planning. Is there a director of planning or is it a director of both? That's what the confusion came in for me. Since we are dealing with this as is right now, are there two directors? So we need to change it completely right here to reflect that. Yes, because I'm sure that department has one director.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so as we look at this coming back, if we could go through, and a lot of these now, as we're looking at this, have not been updated based on what we did at our last meeting. Maybe it's important that we get the update so we actually know what it is that, it's the Director of Planning and Economic Development, not just planning. Man, that throws off a lot of stuff. Why don't we go ahead and make those changes? I don't know, Emery, if you're going to do that, or if Kristen, you do that. How are we going to do that?
I can just do an update to 4-306, just reflecting that the change of the title, because we did that in the previous section about the 4, We did it in a prior section where you did approve the change to the name, so we can, to me, that's just kind of following up with that, so we can do that. I suppose my question for the board is, are there any other policy, I guess, discussions or changes you want to have regarding the planning department? Or any other language you want to add in light of changing the title to planning department? Because right now, the rest of the language in here is strictly talking about zoning. So if you want to have like a larger discussion or include some more policy directives as to that, I guess let me know. Let me know.
Councilmember, or Commissioner Bauer.
And I think that what our real role is to also look at these 5 or 6 departments that were noted in the charter back when they wrote the charter. So what the ones that we decide to include are those, should they all still be relevant committee departments for the city now and into the future. So, and I hadn't really, as I look at these, obviously we're used to these, but I think we all need to be giving some thought to a bigger thought of, for instance, sustainability. But are there, or should other, I agree with code compliance. I think that should be a department, but that is not maybe our role here. I think we need to really look at what would be the major committees, I don't mean committees, departments going forward for the city of Lansing until there'd be a charter change. And these may still be very relevant. I mean, they're the basic functions, but are there other ones that maybe, so I would urge us to, I've got to really give some thought to that too, looking forward. Are there functions that we need to be sure the city is doing in 2025 and forward that might be different than the ones listed here?
But the charter provides the flexibility to the city and to the mayor to do that. I mean, we've already looked at that section that talks about the mayor can change anything, a department by ordinance, which would require council action as well.
But aren't those other departments that he or she would add?
I think that mayor could, maybe but for the Board of Water and Light, couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about the police and fire, but I think for everything else, it's probably wide open. And I think that's the flexibility you want to give the future city government, because
there has to be flexibility,
things are going
right?
to change.
But yet I think this document says here are the main functions via departments that need to be done.
Well, not to throw a wrench into everything, but if you go to Article 5-601, it's entitled Planning Board, but it's really the Planning Commission. And 5-602 talks about the powers and duties. And this, I think, goes to Commissioner Washington's point. And it goes through what is responsible. And when you go to the webpage, the city's webpage on Planning Commission, it talks about 4 major duties: the comprehensive planning, use regulation, the CIP, or the Capital Improvement Program, and the Act 33 review. And, you know, do we actually outline those? Some of them are in here, but it's not very clear. This is one of the few chapters that relate back to the departments that we're talking about, that recognizes the advisory board underneath it, or the board that's underneath it. There's, under public service, there's no public service section for the public service board. I don't think there's anything for the Parks Board. I don't see anything in here for that. Maybe I missed it. But I think in terms of what Commissioner Bauer, you're talking about, do we include those things? Should those be included in there? And again, it's something that I'm sure 10 years from now it's going to change. Because the needs are going to change. That's something I want you to all think about. So, anyway. All right, going back to, are we ready to go to 4-307, Police Department? Okay. We got past 1.2. Anybody have any concerns with that? Or are we going to wait to see if we want to make that language consistent with the fire chief and, or vice versa? Okay,
Yes.
we'll wait on
Yes.
point 2. Okay. Point 3 is very similar, if not the same, as the fire. Anybody have any questions or concerns about that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 4, I think is very consistent with the fire. Anybody have any questions about that provision?
I do have one. When we look back up at 3, just real quick, I just want to make sure this makes sense for us. So the mayor makes a recommendation to terminate a police chief, but it must be approved by the majority of the board serving. So essentially, we're giving the board HR authority of an employee. And does that make good legal sense for us?
It's an unelected position, too.
Okay.
So,
I just want to make
yeah.
sure it doesn't put us in a sticky situation where we have an appointed board that is allowed to hire and fire. Okay.
I think both the fire board and the police board have those authorities.
Okay.
So, I mean, and that was certainly something that the mayor raised in his comments to us several months ago. Okay, Commissioner Boyd, Commissioner Washington.
I just want to say, there's a huge difference between a commission and a board.
Mhm.
Huge. So commissions do have a lot more authority.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Did we do point 4, the oath? I think we did. Anybody have any concerns about the oath? Oh, is anybody, we're on point 4. Anybody have any concerns about the oath? Same language for the police board, or for the fire department. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. Number 5. And I guess, Kristen, I have a question for you. It talks about the immunity that the police have. Is that a different immunity than, the immunity that is granted any governmental jurisdiction? Is there special immunity granted under the law to police?
I mean, generally, police officers, like any other government employee, would be able to have governmental immunity under state law for state tort actions and qualified immunity for federal actions. There may be a couple of immunities specific to police officers about use of Narcan. I mean, that's getting a little bit in the weeds. But generally, I think this is just stating, it is sort of just reiterating that Lansing police officers have the same rights, privileges, and immunities that any other peace officer would in Michigan.
So would that be similar then to the fire department? I mean, it's not, I don't believe that language is in the fire department.
So the fire would not have the ability to be powers of peace officers granted by law. Technically speaking, the charter itself cannot grant an immunity under law. That would have to be state or federal law. Firefighters do have some level of immunity for their job. So, I mean, there are immunities available to governmental employees. So I don't think that needs to be added.
Okay.
And certainly, you should not give your firefighters powers of peace officers unless you're going to get them medical certified.
No, I was not suggesting.
Yeah. So.
All right.
It should be a space.
Where are we?
Where it says granted by law, it should be by law. There's no space.
Oh, okay. So in point 5, first sentence, where it says officers granted by law, there should be a space between by and law. So if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and make that amendment. Okay, on that provision as amended, are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. Now to the Public Service Department, 4-308.1. Are there any concerns or questions? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. The Department of Public, or point 2. Is this, I think this may need to have some updating into those duties. So why don't we pass on that one right now and come back to that at our next meeting? I think we need to clean up some of that stuff. And then point 3, the only question that has come up in that regard is, does the Director of Public Service need to be a registered professional engineer? Or is it just the city engineer?
I think the mayor argued that person did not need to be an engineer.
So is there a motion there? Commissioner Boyd, are you making a motion? Okay. So the motion would be in point 3 to strike the Director of Public Service and insert, strike that. The persons, strike the S off persons, so that would be person appointed to serve as, and then strike Director of Public Service and insert the, so it would be serve as the city engineer shall be registered professional engineers, strike the S off of engineers of the state of Michigan. Does that all make sense? So it would read, person appointed to serve as the city engineer shall be registered public or professional engineer of state of Michigan.
Say that again, please.
Sorry. Yes. I'm striking the public service, the Director of Public Service, and then making it singular. So it would read, person appointed to serve as the city engineer shall be a registered professional engineer of the state of Michigan.
So move.
Pardon me?
Should be the person at the beginning.
Could be.
Reads
It'd be the person. City clerk is making things real difficult. Thank you. So is everybody on the same page? Commissioner Anderson?
So by changing this, are we saying that the Director of Public Service doesn't have to be the city engineer, that these can be two separate positions?
They are two separate provisions currently.
They're
the same, but sometimes they're not, according to the mayor's comments.
Oh, that's not what I was.
okay. I think that it should be the same, but that's just me.
Well, if the public is, if the Director of Public Service is also going to be the city engineer, he or she is they are going to have that registration. So I think if you leave it, if you take out the Director of Public Service, if that director is going to be the city engineer, they're going to have professional engineer's registration.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I'm not an engineer, and I don't know anything about construction, engineering, maintenance, sewage, waste disposal, et cetera. And I couldn't imagine ever running that department without having the education and knowledge to support that. And I would expect the person running that to have that, unless I'm misunderstanding something.
No, I understand what
See,
you're
that's
saying.
what we're putting.
But that's why we have an engineer, though, the city engineer.
So then the Director of Public Service is someone separate, and they just go to the city engineer
be
for information?
Either different, separate, or it could be the same person. But if it's the same person, they have to have the registration. Go ahead.
I'm not speaking for Commissioner Anderson, but what I'm hearing her say is, what if they're separate? Then should the Public Service Director have the same certification?
No, that's what we're saying is
We're
no.
gonna Okay.
Only the city
City
engineer.
engineer, so we need to create, okay.
Commissioner Washington?
I understand what you're saying and I hear you, but I don't think the head of the department, Public Service Department, which is huge, they have a lot of responsibility, has the time to be the city engineer also. I think we would be missing out on the skill of an engineer because the department head would be too busy overseeing everything. And my opinion is they could get that expertise from the city engineer. And because of the responsibility, and the engineer job is very taxing also, I think they should be separate.
Commissioner Andrews.
I guess I would just want more information then, because if sometimes they are the same person, like why is that satisfactory then? And then sometimes we want two separate people. So I guess I would just want more information, possibly from the director, or if we have a separate city engineer currently.
Why don't we wait on this and then we'll contact Public.
Trying to get Patrick in here anyway.
Yeah, he, I think, will be coming in to talk about the sustainability issue, and we can talk to him then about it. Okay? All right. It was a beautifully amended provision, but we'll leave it alone at this point in time. All right, Chapter 4, Departments and Agency Heads. 401, Heads of Departments. Point 1. Questions? All right. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Passes. Point 2. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Passes. Point 3. Any questions on that? Pretty straightforward. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Passes. Then point 4. Did we have some, I thought we had some language on that.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Madam Vice Chair.
the language with the affirmative action would have to be removed or updated
Yeah,
to provide new language.
did we do that, Kristen?
We
Did you
did it previously.
give us an amendment on that?
I think I did at some point. And I mean, really what you could do is you could simply just strike affirmative action on there unless there's some other language you want to put in its place. So if there's some other alternate language about hiring matters that you'd like to consider that isn't affirmative action, we can talk about that. Otherwise, if you just simply want to strike that out, that's possible too.
I think the language that was used was including inclusive actions from your memo. I don't have the memo in front of me, but that's what I was remembering, because we changed it already throughout the document.
So you wanted this to be consistent with what we
Yes,
done?
I think it should be consistent. Well,
All
what
right.
we replaced it with, let's just put that back in.
Okay, why don't we make sure we know what it is we're doing? We'll come back and deal with that
And I'll
at the
find it.
next meeting. Okay, point 5. Chris, I guess I'd ask you on this, how many employees that are appointed persons by the mayor have an indefinite term of employment? I thought everybody was on a one-year contract now.
They have a contract, but it might be a legal question as to whether they're an indefinite term, because the contract says they're at will. So even though it's an annual
I thought-
contract, it does say that they are at will employees, and they're at will employees.
But I thought it had a term in there too. I thought it started on like July 1 and ended June 30th.
Right, yeah, they're calendar year right now.
Okay.
I don't know if that qualifies as an indefinite term or not.
Why don't you check that out, Kristen?
Would it-
Or Commissioner Dow? I'm sorry.
Would it be easier just to remove indefinite term? It said, unless otherwise stated in this charter, every person appointed by the mayor may be suspended or removed by the mayor. Or does that
Unless
change?
you narrow it, that would also apply to boards and commissions.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think when the mayor appoints people, they're not appointed for a term, they're appointed to the position, and then there's an annual contract. So I think the appointment is a little bit separate from the contract. So I think department heads are appointed to indefinite terms, but I'm not a labor attorney.
Kristen, can you review that
Be kind.
and make sure?
I mean, I wouldn't be able to give a full it really depends on what is stated in the contract, but to the clerk's point, the reason indefinite term is in there is because you have all your boards and commissions appointed to a finite amount of time. So, I mean, if the question is at will or not, certainly the way this is worded, all of the directors are at will. I just don't know how those contracts are worded.
I think we'll get you a couple. You can take a look at it. Okay, we'll come back to that one as well.
Chair?
Yes.
I just also have a question for clarification on that, where it talks about that city council could take action to overturn the mayor's removal of a department head. Does that happen? Does that make sense to happen? I mean, I don't know that the reason it struck me as strange, although the city attorney is not a department head, this is language that could almost be used to state that city council could overturn a mayor's firing of a city attorney by 2/3 majority of the council. So it works here for department heads, but reading through that kind of gave me a thought of what we might consider language for the attorney as well.
Okay. Good point. All right, moving on to 4-402, heads of agencies, point 1. Does anybody have any concerns with that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, point 2. Anybody have any concerns? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. Point 3. Why don't we hold on that until we complete 401? Okay. Point 4. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. Okay.
Should we say Human Resources Director instead of Chief Personnel Officer?
Okay. So I will take it back. It's like it never happened. So on point 4, it'll be amended to say "and the Human Resource Director," right? Or Human Resources Director? Pardon me? Okay. Amendment is out there. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes. I'm taking the Chief Personnel Officer out and adding the Human Resources Director.
But you don't have to take a vote or amendment for that, that's just.
Well, that's the amendment. So now we're going to vote on the amended.
Okay.
As number point 4, as amended, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Okay, Chris. It's up to you. What's going on? Could you go over the information that you handed out to us and what's really behind all this?
Sure, it's just the role of city clerks throughout the state of Michigan. And there was just some discussion about how council works and things like that. So we asked clerks, city clerks specifically, not township clerks, who prepared the council agendas and minutes for the full city council, who prepares the agendas and minutes for committees of city council, who drafts resolutions, and who provides legislative analysis of council actions.
So how do you fall into all of this?
I prepare the agendas and minutes for city council. In Lansing, the council staff prepares the committee agendas and minutes for council committees. Resolutions that council is submitting are generally done by either law or the council staff. And then legislative analysis, I would say, is done by council staff in the city of Lansing, too.
And so in terms of the work of the other boards and commissions in the city, do you have any role in?
Only with a couple of boards and commissions, and we did ask that, but we didn't include that analysis across, and we, without knowing how many boards and commissions other cities had, we kind of gave percentage ranges. Most city clerks provide staffing in terms of agendas and minutes for, I think the highest number was below 10% of the other city boards and commissions, like Planning Commission, Board of Zoning Appeals, things like that. So we're kind of in the norm on that.
Okay. So in terms of this information and how it is that you relate to this, I mean, is there any recommendations that you see that in terms of efficiencies for the city that you would change from what's currently going on?
I could see an argument for freeing up council staff time by trying to be more efficient and having my office prepare agendas and minutes, freeing them up to be more legislative analysis. But that's not something that's been studied about.
Okay. You're talking about council committee agendas and minutes.
Yes.
You already do the.
I already do the full council.
Full council. Okay. Yes, Councilmember Ford.
In point 2, under 4-501, it seems to me that there should it's a housekeeping matter. In the second sentence where it says the city clerk shall attend all meetings of the city council, I believe now, Chris, when you can't be there, you appoint a designee, and I think that should be reflected in the article, in the copy. Thank you.
And I agree with that, but I shouldn't say I agree with that, but he has we're going to deal with a chief deputy clerk, and it says the deputy clerk performs all his duties in the absence, so we don't really need to say that. Because if he's absent, his deputy clerk takes place.
Well, if he always has the deputy clerk, but I watch city council, and I don't think that's always the case. But it's up to you.
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
I mean, is that sufficient? And I see where Commissioner Boyd is going. If it doesn't say words designee, and I understand, I can see where you're coming from. How would you prefer? Does it make it?
I think either way is fine.
Okay. All right. Getting back to this, is there any, Commissioner Lopez?
Yeah, on this 2, the city clerk the clerk city council shall keep all printed journals in the English language. That's okay, but is there room to say that shall provide the information in other languages for citizens of the city? We have people who do not speak English or read English.
Can I just offer a counter to that, saying that our President of the United States of America just declared English the official language of the state of our country? So I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying I disagree with it, but it is at odds with what the President has just done.
He has said many things. But we're here to work for the people of Lansing.
Yes.
Okay. So if he can prepare, I mean, they can be stored in English, but what if somebody else that doesn't understand or can read English, a citizen, come and ask for information? What are you going to, how do you provide?
I would probably use Google Translate. Sorry.
All right, let's do this before we get too far afield here. Why don't we go down line by line on these? Commissioner Washington.
I just have a question, and Chris, it's nothing against you, but to me, it makes no sense that council staff doesn't take their own minutes at the council meetings. I mean, you're the keeper of the records, but I don't understand why you are there taking the minutes when they have staff that could do it for them.
Okay, let's, point 1. 4-501.1. Does anybody have any concerns with that?
No.
Pass, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 2. This is the one we've been discussing. Commissioner Kui.
I think Lopez does make a thing that we should add, if available, in other languages as such. For the records, to print it. With computers and electronic now, you can tell anything into a different language.
I understand what you're
Commissioner
saying.
Boyd.
I would ask the question, you say other languages. I think if that's the case, we needed to say what languages.
No.
Sorry.
I think I disagree with that because it can be translated in as many as we can determine. You can do that with AI. I would not.
Okay. Commissioner Bauer.
What language is on there?
Could we just strike in the English language? Why don't we just say
Just
keep
printed journal.
a printed journal, and then we would certainly hope, unless we want to go into a great deal of detail, that our city would hopefully make other languages available for people with everything that we would print. So,
Okay, so you want to amend point 2 by
well,
printed journal, strike in the English language. and
just
then
delete that.
Of its proceedings. So
If I may, the Home Rule Cities Act specifically requires this language, so you have to leave this language in. Yeah.
Could
So
have said that a little
So what about the
earlier.
addition? What about the addition saying it should be available in other languages, though?
That's something certainly you could add and talk about, but this specific language is taken right out of the Home Rule Cities Act, so you do have to shall keep a printed journal in the English language of its proceedings.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then I still want the amendment to make it available in other languages
Just a second, printed journal.
upon request.
Mr. President,
Yes, go ahead.
just to remind us that when we started this job, we did prepare information in different languages because of the need of the community. So that's my basic point. We need to serve the community in Lansing, regardless of anything else that's floating around.
So could this be fixed by saying something like, shall keep a printed journal, including but not limited to in English language of its proceedings? I mean, does that, or maybe that could be redone? I mean, that meets the requirement of the statute, but then opens it up to other languages.
I mean, nothing's prohibiting you from also keeping it in Spanish or whatever language. To the extent that it's something that's very important that, I don't know, you want the clerk to have to put it in other languages. What you could do, instead of stating specific other languages, you could state something like, by request, or, if you want it to be like a standard thing, so there's always access, so you don't have, people that are predominantly another speaking language always have to ask for it. You could, say something like, and look at putting the minutes in other languages used predominantly in the city. So some language, something about not necessarily identifying other particular language, but sort of stating generally if there are other languages that you have a sort of large population that uses that, you could look at developing some language for that.
Well,
I like.
Before we go down the road, I've asked Chris, what capabilities do you have in your office right now?
I don't have any translation capabilities, really. I mean, and when you're talking about keeping a journal, every motion, every resolution, every ordinance. So accurate translations are not easy. And I would hate to have inaccurate translations. So I think the language service is an important thing, but I don't think it's the primary journal of the council proceedings. And I think it's probably the HRCS department that would have the resources and capabilities to provide translation services.
Commissioner Lopez.
I think we say that language assistance may be provided as needed, and that assistance could be sent into HRCS, working with the school district, or with other interpreters in the area.
Madam Vice President.
I would like to propose that we wait on that part, but also I would like to provide some language for that, just to work it out.
Point 2?
Yes, just
Okay.
send I don't know if I send
We'll bring
to
it
you.
back.
Yeah, bring it back.
Yeah.
Or to everybody.
Okay, point 3. I'm sorry, Jasmine. Or Andrew.
I was just,
Commissioner Harris.
it's okay. I would suggest, instead of putting it specifically under the city clerk, of putting it maybe in Article 1 as far as all the things that we do for the city. It's not specific to just council meetings and records. It should be citywide that translation services are available if needed. So maybe in Article 1, I don't know where, but that would be my recommendation.
All right. Other questions, comments? All right. Point 3. Anybody have any concerns or questions? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. Point 4. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, passes. Point 5.
I don't have any question about point 5, but I would like to ask,
Madam Vice President.
for your records, I know they're saying they're printing all documents and everything, but shouldn't it be something about how you maintain records electronically? Because with the time that this was written, obviously, you didn't have that capability. So who you maintain the records, I get that. But you do put information out.
I don't know that this stipulates the format, if that's what you're asking. And
Right.
there are a lot of electronic documents that are available on people's cell phones. So we are a lot more broad and open than we were when this was written. But I don't think this limits us to format.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of point 5, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 6. Any questions? Commissioner Dowd.
I just have one question. I know this came up in some in the past year or so, somebody using the seal and making sure that it was done legally. Like, should something be addressed specifically here? It basically says you're the keeper of the seal, but is there language that would be helpful to make sure that? Yes, because I know there was like notification having to be provided to somebody saying you're not eligible to use the seal of the city.
We have had some circumstances where we have told people that they are not authorized to use the seal. Generally comes up at campaign season.
Right.
I don't know that our attorneys have found a need for any additional language, but we can check with them.
Is there a fine if they do use the seal, or are they just giving a warning?
I think it's a misdemeanor. I don't know that it's ever been pushed to the point of, I think they've just been given a cease and desist letter from the city attorney.
Commissioner Washington.
I think that would be better addressed in an ordinance and not necessary in the charter.
So, thumbs. Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, passes. Point 7. Any questions on that? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Point 8, there should be a point there. Without objection, we'll make it point 8. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Passes. Point 9. Any questions? Hearing none, all of those in favor say aye. Passes. 4-502. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Passes. Okay, that's it for Article 4.
Can I have
Commissioner,
I was curious about the city seal, because we used to, the Secretary of State used to be responsible for the seal, and we would have that same question come up, but we would always tell people they could use the coat of arms, they couldn't use the seal, which was the double ring around the coat of arms. So do you have a coat of arms? So do people use the coat of arms? Yeah, see,
No,
so.
they use the whole thing. I don't know, that's never come up that they
There you go.
only
I'm
use
just asking.
the portion of it.
well, maybe you want to give that some thought. There you go. Okay, do we want to get into Article 5? Nope, I'm hearing, jeez. That didn't take very long. All right, so for night, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Mr. Clerk.
Chair Jeffries, with your indulgence, I do just want to point out that my previous memo is included in the packet, and I only put this out there because it's something that you all have to think about. Our current standard boards and commission structure is one member from each ward, and 4 at-large members. This proposed charter transitions to 5 wards. Now, currently, it's 1 ward member is up every year. Just what is it? There's got to be kind of a basic structure for boards and commissions. How many members? Is it, how does it work? Are they still, maybe they're all at large, maybe it's 1 per ward and 3 at large, or 2 at large, or 5 at large. I just want to start you thinking, because that's going to be, I think, your next.
Okay. I think when we get into 5, yeah. Okay. Commissioner, Washington, anybody? All right. Now's the time for public comment.
And we have Randy Dykeheis, followed by Joy Gleason.
Hi. Yeah, I know said I only had 2 things. Actually, I had 3 things, and I forgot one. In regards to Article 5, boards and commissions, in addition to term limits and the appointment process, 5-103.6 says the mayor shall file a list of appointments to the boards to the first council meeting in May of each year, and the council shall act on each appointment at or prior to its first meeting in June. I just want to point out that this is almost never done. So it's another case where the charter is willfully ignored. Most recently, the Board of Water and Light Commissioner's term expired this past June. He continued to serve until, what month is this? Until January, when a new commissioner was chosen. So either that needs to be changed, or there needs to be some kind of enforcement put in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Joy Gleason, and then Loretta Sandaway.
Good evening again. For the relationship between the mayor and the city attorney, it seems as though we could also apply that same amount of transparency by having the city council know who all of the applicants are that the mayor may choose to appoint, so that at least they have an idea of who's not being chosen and what the qualifications of the different candidates are. As to the Board of Water and Light, Chapter 2, and then it says 5-201, and the second half of that says, "The board shall be responsible to the mayor and the city council for the provision of these services in a manner consistent with best practices." Once again, in the past 12 years, we have seen practices that are less than the best and border on illegality. But it doesn't seem that they actually carried out the part about being responsible to the mayor and the city council. So it leaves a question: if the Board of Water and Light is a department of the city, like it's listed with the other city departments in this charter, why doesn't it behave more closely like some of the other departments? Why isn't it accountable to the city auditor the way the other departments are accountable to the city auditor? There are some questions in there about how the Board of Water and Light became to be such an autonomous entity when it is listed as a department of the city. That's something that really should have time taken to put into that, to find out how did this happen, and then, of course, as is your charge, to make sure that you put provisions in the next charter to see that the abuse of the people of the city of Lansing will not ever occur again the way that it has in the recent past where the Board of Water and Light is concerned.
Thank you. Next is Loretta Stanaway and then Kirsten Walters.
Okay, briefly, first off, on your agenda, your printed copy today does not include a lot of the information that was on the email that was sent out on Friday afternoon, so I just bring that to your attention. Second, on parity of commission and committee and board assignments, if they go to a per diem process, may I suggest that you cannot ask for and expect there always to be parity. The chair of the council has the discretion to appoint people based on what he or she considers to be their abilities, their interests, their level of ethical responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera. And if there is someone who the board chair does not feel is going to be effective, they may not appoint them to an equal number of chairs or commissions or whatever. So you cannot set in stone that everybody has to get the same number of assignments. It has to be left to the discretion of the council chair. The point Jody Washington made was correct. You can do an elected city attorney. You can be the first in the state to do it. And going to the city attorney, the overriding problem for years and years and years has been the disparity between having a city attorney that serves two masters. No one can serve two masters. You can't serve the council and the mayor and be effective in both those responsibilities. I suggest we split it. I suggest that there be a city attorney responsible to the mayor for all the administrative stuff that goes on in a city that a city attorney would deal with, and there not be a city attorney responsible to council. The council would then go and have a retaining attorney, somebody on attorney responsible only to them, that they only draw on when they need his advice or her advice. Separate those responsibilities out. And also, Chair Jeffries, the boards and commissions are listed on the website of the city under boards and commissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, and finally, is Kirsten Walters.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kirsten Walters. I'm an at-large member of your park board and a member of your neighborhood advisory board. My comment tonight is regarding the requirements for police chief of the city of Lansing. I noticed while you were going through those tonight that it's not a requirement that they be MCOLS or State of Michigan certified as a law enforcement officer. My recommendation would be to include that. I know it hasn't been an issue with the last string of police chiefs, that they have, been promoted from within the department, which would require MCOL certification. But moving forward, I think that's an important thing to note within this charter to ensure that we have a certified law enforcement officer. I know that can also exclude out of state, as those would not be MCOL certified, but I would include language to ensure that the reciprocal process with other states would be that they are a certified officer wherever that they serve. So that'd be my recommendation, and thank you all.
Thank you.